Hey guys, welcome to Nightmare Darkness. You will hear the best scary horror stories. Wish you a scary night.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Let's get started.
My first experience with the paranormal was actually a string of experiences. I was 16, and my family had just moved into a new home. I loved the house. I had my own room that I picked myself, and I didn't feel any kind of hesitance while unpacking and decorating to make myself feel more at home. Everything was great. At least, for the first week. After school, I would get home with my little brother about an hour before my mom. One day, I was the first one into the home. I threw my bag on the kitchen table and found my cat stood frozen, staring at a door in the kitchen that led to our garage. I spoke to my cat. "What are you doing?" I walked towards him, but before I could touch him, a woman's scream came from the garage and my cat sprinted from the room, and I followed, taking my little brother with me outside and calling my mom. My brother insisted he didn't hear anything, and my mom suggested that I must have imagined it, but I knew it was real. Once my mom got home, we checked the house to find nothing. She suggested that I was stressed and watching too many scary movies. I didn't bother to argue any further. I could tell that I wasn't going to be believed, so I grabbed my bag and walked to my bedroom at the end of the hall. I stood in the doorway, freezing in my tracks. My closet door was slid open and hanging from its track, as if someone had tried to pull it off, and my pillow was standing in the middle of the room, a flat, flimsy pillow that I couldn't get to stand if I wanted it to. I yelled for my mom. "Someone's been in my room," I accused. She came back, my little brother trailing behind her. I pointed in the room, only to find the pillow now laying flat, as it should have been the whole time. "You must have knocked it off the bed when you woke up this morning." She brushed it off, but I knew I hadn't, and even if I had, how was it standing like that? I played with the pillow for several minutes, trying to mimic the position it had been in, but I couldn't. It wasn't possible. I went to bed that night without a problem. While I did think what had happened earlier that day was strange, I didn't lose sleep over it, but I was prone to waking throughout the night, so like clockwork, I woke around 3 in the morning and got up to go to the bathroom. When I returned the doorway to my bedroom, I froze. I could see a figure, sitting on the edge of my bed. It had no features, just the shadow of a large man. I leaned forward, squinting my eyes, trying to adjust my vision to the darkness of my room, but before I could move any further, the figure stood and charged at me. I've never screamed so loud. My feet came out from under me and I hit the floor, my hand flipping on the light before I had lost my balance. Nothing was there. My mom and brother were there in an instant, wondering why I was screaming and now crying on the floor. I tried to explain. "You were dreaming," my mom told me. I was awake. I was up. I tried to argue, but she shook her head. "You must have been dreaming," she insisted. "Go back to bed." I didn't sleep well that night. The next day went fine. That is, until I was back home from school. The house suddenly didn't feel like home to me, and my room did not feel like mine. I felt like I was invading someone else's space, and I was apologetic. I attempted to make an Ouija board out of cardboard and a clear bottle cap. I was desperate to confirm my own experiences. "Hello?" I said quietly, waiting for a response. "Nothing. I'm sorry if we moved into your home. I'll be a good roommate. I'm very clean." I began to ramble, but the bottle cap never moved. I started to feel silly, looking down at the makeshift board, so I pushed it away and climbed into bed. That night, I heard something rattling around. I initially thought it was a large house moth, knocking itself into something. I flipped on my bedside lamp and noticed the board on the floor, only the bottle cap was standing on its side, spinning like a quarter in circles. I let out a breath of air in disbelief, and the cap dropped, once again motionless. I jumped out of bed and grabbed the board, tearing it in half and shoving it in the trash. I kept my lamp on for about an hour before I started to feel tired again. Reluctantly, I flipped the lamp back off and drifted to sleep. I slept with a blindfold on, irritated by the smallest bit of light, so when I awoke again, feeling the cold air of my fan, I assumed I had kicked my blanket off in my sleep. I felt around the bed, trying to find it to cover myself again, but no luck, so I lifted my blindfold and was horrified to see my blanket, standing tall above me. I moved quickly, attempting to throw my feet to the side and run to the door, but the blanket fell and I was forced back to my mattress, a weight suffocating me, as if someone had just laid on top of me. I gasped for breath, trying to scream, but not a sound would escape my throat. I remember my eyelids fluttering as I lost consciousness from the lack of air. That morning, I awoke with my blindfold lifted, my blanket tossed to the side of the bed, and pain taking over my body. I knew I hadn't imagined it. I came out of my room and couldn't stop myself from crying when I found my mom getting ready for work in the bathroom. I tried to explain, but she didn't believe me. She never believed me. "You were dreaming," she said to me. "You can stay home from school today. Try and get some rest." I reluctantly nodded and went back to bed, still scared to really go back to sleep. I laid stiff and waited for the sound of my mom and brother leaving for the day. I heard the keys jingle and the door close. I was alone in the home. I rolled onto my stomach and cried into my pillow. "I'm sorry about your mom," a voice said, clearly beside me. I gasped and sat up straight. No one. I couldn't handle being alone there. I got out of bed and walked myself to school. We moved out of the home shortly after due to my mom getting married, and all activity stopped, much to my relief.
So this just happened to me legit like 5 minutes ago. I'm currently in college and I'm living in a dorm. I share a room with one other person and they're asleep right now. I've had a habit of waking up earlier than I want because the curtains we have kinda suck and the sunlight every morning wakes me up. I woke up this morning around 8:45, but I still had time before my first class, so I went back to bed. I faced the wall to my left to try and block the light from the window to my right. As I'm falling asleep, I felt someone sit on my bed right behind my back. I felt them shift around a bit before sitting completely still. At first I thought it could be my roommate, but they're very shy and we barely talk, so I don't know why they would do that. Then I worried that some random person broke into my dorm. As I lay completely still, I felt my bed shift again before it was still. I felt genuinely terrified. I don't know if it was my paranoia or something, but I thought I might die. In my mind, some random person broke into my dorm and sat on my bed. Eventually, I got the courage to turn around and face whoever was on my bed. When I turned around, no one was there. I was honestly surprised, but also confused. The pressure on my bed is now gone. As I'm writing this, I'm trying to think about what just happened. It couldn't have been a nightmare because I pinched myself after I turned around to make sure it wasn't. I can't wait to move out next week. Hi everyone. So, this happened to me when I lived with a flatmate and worked nights. This one night, I came back home around 2:30 a.m., and since my flatmate worked as ground staff, and her shifts rotated every week, she was supposed to be home around 6:30 a.m. that morning. I had a private balcony, and because it was winter, I kept it closed or my room would be freezing. I lived in a place that can get 2 or 1 degrees during winter, but that's it, so there was never heating system in the house, but we had room heaters. It was odd that it was open since I remembered closing it before leaving for work, but chalked it off to my flatmate. I closed the open door to this balcony, turned off the light outside, and got into my usual routine of taking a bath and changing for bed. It was about 3 a.m. by then, and when I hit the pillow, I fell asleep immediately. Now this was out of the ordinary for me, since it always takes me a good hour to fall asleep once in bed. I didn't remember falling asleep either. I woke up about an hour later as I was really cold, and saw the door to the balcony was open again and the lights were back on. I remembered closing it and turning the lights off very clearly. From my bed, I had a diagonal view to the balcony, so I can see anyone who may be standing there. Just as I was about to get out of bed, I saw something move out of the shadows where I couldn't see, and into the light. It was me, and I climbed onto the steel railings. Once on top, she turned her neck to look back directly at me, and smiled a little too wide for human beings. She had too many teeth. Then she jumped off the balcony down into the fog. I was frozen, not that I couldn't move, but more like I was shell-shocked. I got up from bed shakily after a couple of minutes, freaked out of my mind, closed the door and turned off the lights outside again. Didn't sleep for the rest of that night. I still don't understand what I saw to this day, but it always inspires a chill down my back when I think back on it. I haven't seen her again since.